Hey everyone, welcome to episode 51 of Unlearn with Bianca. If you're here for the first time, then welcome. On this podcast, we explore everything around self-healing, health, personal growth, the mind-body connection, relationships, and more. In these episodes, I'm here to empower you, to educate you, and to challenge you so that you can deepen the connection that you have with yourself. Hello, guys. I'm so happy to be back for a solo episode. I've probably said this before, but I find these solo episodes really therapeutic, and I actually find it so good to get out what's been on my mind, try and get these concepts across to you guys. It's a bit of a challenge for me. So I've really missed it, but how good were the last 3 interviews? I was just reflecting on some of the people that I sit down and speak to, which are friends, which are colleagues, which are people in my sphere. And I just think I love that I have so many different passions and so many areas that I'm interested in, because some of these conversations are just so interesting. Like, I'm learning so much. And the whole aim of this podcast was never really to teach you from a place of, this is what I think you should do and follow this, but it's really to get you thinking about different perspectives and just how different people think and understand things. So I'm really enjoying having a whole range of guests on, and I hope you are too. And do let me know what ones you're finding really interesting. Like, I can see the numbers of the downloads, but it's always really nice for me to hear direct from you guys what you're resonating with, what you're taking, what you want to see more of. So before we get into today's episode, just some updates from me. I am coming back to Christchurch in June, and I will be running a in-person lightning process training on the 6th to the 8th of June. That is over Friday, Saturday, Sunday. For those of you who aren't very familiar with the lightning process, it's a 3 half-day training that is designed for people that are stuck. And that can be stuck mentally or stuck physically. So typically I see people with anxiety, chronic fatigue, long COVID, chronic pain, IBS, a whole lot of different ongoing symptoms that someone typically can't get to the bottom of. So my job as a practitioner is to teach my clients tools to retrain the brain. And when we retrain the brain, we are sending different signals through the nervous system into the body. So I'm helping my client break circuits, essentially, and rewire their brains and their nervous systems. And I'm sure you've already heard, if you've listened to previous episodes of me interviewing my clients and hearing about their health journeys, their stories, this is a very transformative 3-day training. Within it, I'm teaching the skills that I actually think we should all know, like basics around the brain, how the brain works, rewiring the brain. But especially if you're stuck with chronic symptoms or have chronic illness, this training can help you get your life back. So, the funny thing is, and I've said this before actually on an episode, I'm so used to seeing people get their health back, recovering from chronic fatigue, long COVID, chronic pain, moving through anxiety. All of these things are so frequent in my world that I forget to actually share with you guys how powerful it is. So what I'm going to do is leave a direct link in the show notes to some of my client testimonials, because if you've been thinking about, like, what does this brain retraining work? What does this nervous system work? Have a look at these testimonials, because you might resonate with someone's story. And I think that is a really good starting point if you're interested in this kind of work, just really reading through other people's experiences and seeing the potential for change. So there will be a link in the show notes for that. If you're interested in the lightning process training, but you're not in Christchurch, that is fine. I work with clients around the world online. Actually, predominantly my work is online, and we just do the same training. It's all just online and on Zoom. So there is the option for that as well. So please get in touch if that is you. And the other thing is, I am creating new offerings, new standalone workshops. So I've also put a link in the show notes for my email list. If you want to go in and subscribe, it will take you directly to a page where you can put your email in, and then you'll stay up to date with all my stuff coming out. You'll be the first in the know. And yeah, I'd love to have you on that, because I've got some exciting things in the works. Okay, guys, that's the admin out of the way. Let's get into today's episode. So today we are covering neuroscience concepts. I think I'm going to give you 4 neuroscience concepts that will change the way you think, the way you act, the way you feel, because these are very powerful concepts. I did an Instagram post last week, and this post resonated with so many people. And a few people asked if I could share more in depth about these concepts, these principles. So here I am doing it for you guys today. I want to share about each concept and then how it might relate to your world specifically in practical terms. And yeah, if you resonate with this episode and you like the neuroscience concepts, do let me know, because there's some more concepts I can send your way. I just narrowed it down to 4 today. Okay, the first one, which is actually one of my favorite things to talk about, and one of the things my clients find the most fascinating, is the placebo effect. Some of you may have heard of the placebo effect before, but the placebo effect is when a person experiences real changes in their body or their mind or their symptoms after receiving a treatment that actually had no active ingredients in it. So like you have a sugar pill, you're told it's something different, and your body responds as if you had, let's say, a painkiller. And that's simply because the person taking, say in this instance, the pill, believes it's going to help them, and their body responds as if it is helping. The thing is that up until I'd say quite recently, in terms of like the last decade, the placebo effect hasn't really been seen as something positive. Like, in fact, it's from the medical community, it gets in the way of a lot of trials. It gets in the way of new medication coming out and the effectiveness of medication. So it hasn't really been seen as something that's positive. However, this is changing. The more that we're learning about the mind-body connection, the power of the mind, there's actually a real fascination around the placebo effect and the power of our minds and our beliefs. So people say it's like, oh, it's just the placebo effect if something happens, to dismiss healing. But it's like, hold on, we really want to be looking at the fact that your body is healing itself using 0 chemicals, 0 medication. Somehow that is disappointing. I'm like, no. Actually, that's quite the opposite. That's incredible. That just shows that our body has this innate healing capability, which I've always believed in. So often our culture, just to give some context, we really kind of praise the external stuff, the pills, the protocols, but we underestimate the internal. We underestimate the belief systems, the nervous system regulation, where we put our attention, and how powerful that can be on healing. So the placebo effect is really proof that healing doesn't have to come from the outside. We can spend all the money to do all of that stuff, but our beliefs also have a major impact on our physiology. So what's going on inside our body. And the crazy thing is that, and I'll share with you guys some studies in a second, but what is even more powerful is that even when someone knows they might be taking a placebo, e.g. it has no active ingredient in it, it often still works, which is the crazy part. Okay, so before I share some studies and cool examples with you guys in a minute, I want to share how this actually happens, like the science of this happening, because it's not like you just think something and it magically happens. This is not fake healing. It's a real physiological change in the body that's driven by our beliefs, our expectations, and our perception. So if you are given a placebo drug, let's say it's a sugar pill, but it's told that this is going to help, let's say, reduce your pain, the brain gets a signal and says you are being treated, right? It expects that this is going to reduce the pain. And then from there, it releases natural chemicals like endorphins or dopamine. It reduces stress hormones. Therefore, the inflammation lowers and the immune responses shift to the point where if this person was actually having a brain scan, it would show changes in brain activity when someone actually believes that they're receiving an effective treatment, even if it's placebo. And this just shows how our beliefs and the context refers to like who's giving you the drug or the placebo drug, like whether you trust in that practitioner, the language they use when giving it to you, like all of these other things, how that can directly affect our biology. Like this is science, guys. I really want to drill that in, because it's neuroscience, it's science. Okay. So I want to give you some like studies that I find super fascinating because they really demonstrate this real time. I actually have a few favorite books that I recommend if you're into all this stuff. So there's actually one by Dr. David Hamilton, called Like Mind, Like Body, I think it is. And the other one is Biology of Belief by Dr. Bruce Lipton. They're both really good books. So one of my favorite studies from 2003, it was actually based here in New Zealand. Some psychologists from Victoria University conducted a study that explored how the belief of consuming alcohol, even when no alcohol was actually ingested, could affect memory and suggestibility. So how this study went, there were close to 150 participants, I think, just under, and they were divided into two groups. So one group was told that they were drinking vodka and tonic, and the other group was told that they were drinking just plain tonic water, right? But in reality, all of the participants in this study were only drinking tonic water. So nobody was drinking alcohol. And the setting was designed to mimic a bar. So it had like bartenders, vodka bottles, I'm sure music, the glasses were rimmed with lime and dipped in vodka, everything to enhance this illusion that they were drinking alcohol and they were in that like classic bar setting. So what happened, which was the crazy thing, is that a lot of the people that were told they had vodka, they actually started acting as if they were mildly intoxicated, mildly drunk. They were louder, they had changes to their confidence levels, their behavior changed, and their memory even changed, even though they had zero alcohol in their system. So to get to the memory piece, something that happened within the study was that the participants were shown a slideshow of a crime, like a mock theft kind of thing. And later they were given a written summary of what had happened, but it was full of misleading information. So it didn't align with the slideshow they were showing. But when the researchers quizzed them about the details, the participants, the really crazy bit is the people who believed they were drunk, which was the group that thought they were drinking the vodka tonics, they were more likely to remember the fake details as true. So this just shows that thinking that they were intoxicated, that belief around I have alcohol in my system, that started to affect their memory and their confidence with recall. So that is crazy to me, like really being convinced that you're drinking and then literally feeling like you've had a drink. That's wild. I mean, could we bring that into real life? I don't know. Might take the edge off sometimes. Very interesting. So another one is by Dr. Bruce Moseley, well known for sham surgeries. Sham surgeries are essentially placebo surgeries. So he was a surgeon. They set up a clinical trial with 180 people, all suffering from chronic knee arthritis. And the reason for this trial was to see if a belief in surgery could make as much impact as the surgery itself. This is what a sham surgery is. So these patients were randomly divided into three groups. The first group got the real surgery. You know, they went in, they were operated on, removed any damaged tissue, and then came out of it, recovered. The second group got this sham surgery. Now, this is where they thought they were having the same surgery, but all the surgeon did was make a few incisions. They didn't actually do anything other than some prodding and poking. They had all signs pointing to the fact they had a real surgery because I think there was a recording of a surgery played in the background, all cues pointing that they were under surgery. And the third group, they didn't get any surgery at all. They were given a physical therapy plan and sent on their way. What was really fascinating was the results of the surgery and the sham surgery. So the patients that had the sham surgery, the patients that did not have the actual surgery, they just had the incision, who got no real treatment, they almost had the same level of improvement in pain and knee function as those who had the actual surgery. In fact, 70% of them reported significant relief on their knee pain and mobility. 70%. And the real surgery, the people that actually had the proper surgery, that was 73% improvement. So only 3% difference between the real surgery and the placebo surgery. And then the group that did the physical therapy, I think they had like 50% improvement. So just let that sink in. It's crazy. It's crazy that the belief, all signs pointing to the fact you think you're having a surgery, the expectation of surgery, the relief knowing that you're going in for surgery, all of that can have such a massive impact on your physiology. Now, I do want to point out that this was in the initial first few years. Long term, there could have been some changes. And in fact, I think they had to tell, for ethical reasons, the people that went in for the sham surgery, that they were part of a placebo trial. And I know for sure that for some of those people, when they were told, some symptoms and pain started coming back, which is really, really interesting, even more interesting, I think. However, a significant number of participants still felt a lot better after having the sham surgery than they did before the study. And many actually chose not to pursue further surgery when they found out they had had a sham surgery, because they still felt that they'd experienced enough relief to live with their condition. I even remember a conversation I had with a surgeon a few years ago, and he said that when a patient comes in thinking that this operation is going to be really beneficial and really helpful, the outcomes are often so much higher than someone that is resisting the operation and doesn't want it done but feels like they have to. So that in itself really stuck out to me, because it's sort of implying the same kind of thing. So I'm thinking about how the placebo effect can actually apply in our everyday life without us even realizing. Let's say you're feeling a bit run down and you start a new diet, or you take a new supplement that really promises to boost your energy levels. And after a week, you notice you're feeling more energized and more focused. It's not to say that it isn't a supplement, because it could be. Like, I've definitely had some good supplements that I've noticed really help. However, what's interesting is that the change, especially that quickly, might be partially because of the placebo effect. You believe a diet or a supplement is working, and therefore your mind and body are responding accordingly. So we really want to give credit to our brain, our beautiful, intelligent brain, and our belief system, because our body can respond to that pretty quickly. I gave you guys a book name by Dr. David Hamilton at the start, but I've actually remembered that it's not correct. So the title is actually called Not Like Mind, Like Body. It's How Your Mind Can Heal Your Body by Dr. David Hamilton. So in that book, I know there's a lot of placebo studies and examples. So that one is a great one to get your hands on. So the next concept is very similar, and that is the nocebo effect, which is essentially the opposite of the placebo. It's where a belief in a negative outcome actually creates or amplifies the outcome in the mind and body. So it's like a really easy example I like to think of is taking a new medication or a new supplement, and then just happening to scan the side effects before you take it. And then once you've seen the side effects, you just can't get it out of your mind. And you notice, I don't know if anyone's had this experience before, and you notice you get a little bit of nausea, or you get a bit of a headache, and you're like, oh God, it's the medication. And then you're kind of waiting for it to increase, and you're not sure how long it's going to last for, and you get more fearful around it. That is the nocebo effect. Another example might be that you're somebody who just feels better without eating too much dairy, right? So you go to a restaurant, you're looking through the menu, you ask the waiter, hey, does this have dairy? And I just want to check. And he says, no. You order your meal, you have your beautiful meal, you're sitting there enjoying the atmosphere, taking it all in. And then the waiter comes back to you and says, oh, I'm really sorry, I thought that didn't have dairy in it, but it actually did have dairy in it. Just want to let you know. But you've already eaten the food. From that place, although you may not have experienced any checking in on your body, any stomach pains, any headaches, any anxiety, as soon as you find out that has dairy in it, then you start to perhaps feel a bit anxious about how you're going to feel, or how you're going to wake up feeling tomorrow, or if you're going to get bloated. But before that, you had no expectation or no belief. So that can be another example of the nocebo effect. There's a study from 2015 that really highlights this, the power of negative expectations. There were a group of patients that were suffering from headaches, and they were given a placebo treatment, but with a twist. So they were told that this treatment could actually worsen their headache or intensify their symptoms. Now, even though they received this inactive placebo, which probably was a sugar pill, a significant percentage of the patients reported that their headaches actually became worse, and they were experiencing increased pain because of the expectations that this treatment could worsen their headaches. And then on the other flip side is that the other half of the participants were given the same treatment but told nothing about the potential side effects, and they had experienced a decrease in their discomfort. So they actually felt a lot better. So I just want you guys to take a minute about where you might be expecting, based on previous experience, by the way, based on previous experiences in life and, what evidence you have so far, where you might be expecting a negative outcome and your body might be following through with that. So like, this food always makes me feel so bloated. Like having that thought and that expectation before you even eat the food. This is the work I do with my lightning process clients. I help them break that circuit so their brain and their body aren't in that continual loop cycle. I always get sick after drinking, or I always feel nauseous when I'm flying. These expectations of what might happen and then our body quickly following through. So it's really interesting how unconscious or how autopilot these become. And all you need to just do is to start where you can, catching these like expectations and doing your best to challenge them. And of course, coming to see me if you want to do some more work on this. And just a side note, like on the eating food and intolerances and drinking alcohol, I have had so many clients that have like limited so many food groups and not had alcohol in fear that they're going to make them feel worse. And then when we do brain retraining and nervous system work, they're able to like eat with freedom, drink alcohol on their terms, like with a choice at least, and feel really good in their body. I'm not talking about celiac disease. I'm not talking about allergies, but I am talking about intolerances and the way that our body responds to how we think we're going to digest a particular food. So yeah, something to keep in mind as well. Okay, guys, so we're 2 down. The third neuroscience concept that I love to talk about is mirror neurons. So we all have these things called mirror neurons that really help us sync up with other people. We are wired to sync up with people around us. We're wired to be communal. We're wired to be in connection with others, right? But we are literally catching feelings from others, and it's through our mirror neurons. So the mirror neurons that are in our brain operate below the level of conscious thought, meaning that they're like beyond our awareness. We can mirror behaviors and emotions with other people without even realizing it. And this is why sometimes we might act in ways we feel out of character or react to something that feels a bit off afterwards. Like, I don't know about you guys, but being in a situation where you're perhaps in a new situation or with someone you don't know, and then you respond in a way you weren't really expecting, or you say something, you're like, why did I say that? Why did I act like that? Why did I do that? And that's because your mirror neuron switched on and took over and tried to sync up with that other person, even if it doesn't feel like you at the time. So it's sort of like an autopilot thing. Like you've probably experienced this one where you're at the movies and then someone yawns and then suddenly everyone in the room starts yawning, or you're in a meeting and someone yawns, and of course from there everyone starts yawning. Even if you weren't tired, but you can't help but yawn, this happens because of mirror neurons. Our brains automatically trigger the same response, causing us to yawn in return. It's like a subtle form of social bonding in a really weird way. So yawning is one of the most obvious and harmless examples of mirror neurons at work, even when you're not tired. It's the same with smiling. Let's say you're out for a walk and you walk past someone and they smile at you, or they do that grin at you. Likely you will unconsciously do that back. Even if you're like, oh, I don't really smile that way. Like, you're going to give them some form of smile because it's your mirror neurons kicking in. I find people that have high levels of empathy have quite strong mirror neurons. So even if they're talking to someone and someone takes a particular posture, like their arms are crossed or they open up their body, like whatever they do, the person on the receiving end will likely mimic that if their mirror neurons are strong. It's just really fascinating when you start to understand and see it in real time, how much we tend to do this as humans as a way to create this rapport and connection. If you're watching somebody on TV and they get injured or hurt, or you see something on social media and it's not a nice thing, you'll notice yourself like squirm, or you'll notice yourself tighten again, because it's a natural empathetic response. But for some people, like if someone gets injured and they're watching it on TV, they might even feel that in their body. Like, that is how powerful our mirror neurons can be. But as much as these mirror neurons have a positive outcome for us and really are there for social reasons and rapport, we also want to be aware of the, I'd say, less positive side effects of having these, because when it comes to other people, it means that we can carry the weight of other people without realizing it. So stress, fear, and anxiety from others, we can often, through our mirror neurons, carry it without realizing it. And this is called social contagion. And it's this idea that emotions, especially like really negative ones, can spread through groups almost like a virus. So if a person has let's say a person in your workplace is in like a really heightened state of stress, your mirror neurons may start firing in response, subtly pulling your nervous system into that same heightened, dysregulated stress state. So then you start feeling tense, not because you're stressed, because your brain is mirroring someone else's distress. And I think we've all had that experience before, where we are in a situation, somebody's not doing so well, and we can feel that. But if you're constantly going into that, that's when it can really, that's when we want to become aware of it. Another example is like scrolling through social media, and then suddenly you feel really anxious or hopeless, or just being around someone that's really negative and they start to drain your energy. Your body is wired to sync up, but it doesn't always ask if it's syncing with something helpful or harmful. So this is why emotional boundaries and nervous system awareness, meaning like how we're feeling in our body, tense or relaxed, just having that awareness is really important, because then we can be more intentional about who and what we're absorbing. Finally, the last concept that I want to give you guys today is one that kind of sits within this idea of neuroplasticity. And neuroplasticity is just the brain's ability to change based on how it's used. The last concept is called Hebb's law. It's basically the idea that what fires together wires together. So it's a core principle behind neuroplasticity. So it's talking about how the brain builds associations. So every time two neurons or nerve pathways are activated at the same time, like a thought and an emotion, or a trigger and a reaction, the connection between them gets stronger. Okay, that's the brain building pathways to get stronger. And because the brain tries to protect us, tries to make things easy for us, tries to make things safe, but doesn't really care about whether it's benefiting us or not. It kind of strengthens what we use the most. This is where we can understand Hebb's law as something really positive, like it's like building a skill, building a habit, or it also explains why we can get really stuck because we've practiced a pathway, let's say anxiety, for a while without realizing, and the brain has strengthened those pathways. So it's almost like it's easier to access that pathway with time. So I'll explain this through like a metaphor, right? Think of your brain like a dense rainforest. And every time you think a thought or feel an emotion, it's like walking down a trail. You guys can't see me right now, but I've literally got my hands in motion. Like I'm walking down a trail. The more you take the same path, the more worn it becomes. It's easier to follow. It's faster to find that path. That is the example of what we use consistently becomes easier and stronger. Neurons that fire together, wire together. But the cool part is, which I'll get into soon, is that we can actually create new trails. We can create new thought patterns. They are slow and awkward at the start, but with repetition, they become dominant. They become your new normal dominant pathways. The other analogy, which I often share with my clients, is like building a muscle. Just like going to the gym builds muscle memory in your body. If we're thinking about Hebb's law, it's like building mental memory in your brain. So every time you respond to stress with panic, you're strengthening that muscle. But every time you respond to the same situation with a pause or a breath or something that regulates you, you're building a new, stronger one. So your brain gets better at what you practice and it takes that dominant pathway. So I'm thinking like, what's a good example for like everyday life? Let's go anxiety. So every time you open your inbox, let's say you've got like, you're like me and you don't clear your emails. So you've got like 7,120 in there. And you see that your body floods with stress hormones. Your brain starts linking email equals urgency and danger. The more that happens, the more automatic the response comes. So eventually you're just seeing the email app. You're not even going into it. You're just seeing the icon on your background of your phone, and your neurons have wired that pattern in and you feel stressed, right? That is an example of how the brain learns through association and strengthens those pathways. This Hebb's law also applies to emotional states. And if you're someone like, let's say you notice, whenever I get angry at that particular colleague at work, I get really angry. And then I go on my lunch break and I beat myself up and I go into guilt and like, I shouldn't have said that. Let's say that's a repetitive pattern. So each week you see this colleague, it's the same issue, the same anger, then that leads into guilt. What your brain and your nervous system learn is that this combo of anger and then self-blame or guilt, it's a loop. It becomes a practice loop. And over time, your brain doesn't even wait. It just jumps straight from trigger to emotional pairing. So that person straight into anger and guilt. And it becomes a well-worn path. So something activates your stress, say this person, without even thinking, your body floods with anger and your inner dialogue starts turning critical on yourself. Not because it's true, but because it's familiar. It might not even be that person at one point. It might be just a photo of that person. It might be hearing about that person in conversation because the brain has learned to associate those states and pair up those states of anger and guilt and that person. So this is really why it's important for us to consider our triggers and to see where our brain loops into cycles. And that's once we have that awareness, we can start to look at how we can break that. The empowering part though, like I said earlier, if that pattern was wired in, if these associations were made through the brain, it can be rewired. And this happens through awareness, through nervous system safety, through like looking at our self-talk, through new emotional pairings. And when we start to do that, we can create new pathways. Now, the key to retraining the brain and nervous system responses is consistency and compassion. I say that to all my clients. Doesn't even matter what they're working on. It might be like mental, emotional patterns or physical patterns. It's always consistency, because just like building a muscle at the gym, it takes some work, takes some practice, it takes consistently showing up. It's the same with our brain. If we're practicing boundaries consistently, they come easier over time. If we usually get into anger and then we turn on ourselves and get into blame, if we notice that and we break that and we start practicing compassionate self-dialogue over time, that becomes easier to access. That becomes a new pathway. So I really want to reassure you guys that this is possible to break these patterns, these pairings, to use Hebb's law in a way that actually is positive and life enhancing for us. Because the thing is that neuroplasticity, meaning the brain's ability to be retrained, it's always happening. It just depends on if we're wiring it intentionally, noticing our patterns, changing our habits and that kind of thing. So it's possible with support to do this. And yeah, I've done it. My clients are doing it. You guys are probably doing it by listening to this podcast, hopefully. So let's use it to our advantage. All right, beautiful people. That is 4 neuroscience concepts that I love, that I hope you love too. I hope that you go about your week and you start to notice how some of these concepts are showing up in your reality, in your life. As I said at the start, I would love to know what you want to see more of. Like, this podcast is for you guys. My new offerings, I want to make them tailored to what you want more of. So I am keeping that in mind. I have a feeling that the next one coming out, self-sourced, is like quite a long program. The lightning process is quite a targeted program. So the next offering will be somewhere in the middle, I'd say like a 4-week workshop series. But please let me know what you want to hear more of, what you need support with. And if you haven't already and you enjoy this podcast, please give me a rating. Please make sure you're following. It's a way you can support me. Share with people in your life that you know will also benefit from these types of episodes. I hope you all have an amazing week ahead, and I will see you guys on the next episode. Bye.